High-stakes testing impacts students in a variety of ways. I think at the very least, it's really stressful for kids and it's uncomfortable. And then at the most, I think high-stakes testing changes the way that kids think. It makes you fearful to be wrong.
We're creating an environment of fear and anxiety in students from a very young age. And when you have that kind of negativity associated with learning, that is going to snowball and that's going to follow them throughout their educational career, and that's not what we want for our children. We want them to enjoy going to school. We want them to enjoy learning because we want them to continue to learn and be lifelong learners. And my fear is that it's going to create such anxiety that they're not going to finish.
We all know there's an emotional stigma attached to not doing well on these tests. They internalize and think that they're a failure, that I can't do this. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? And it's just too much. It's too much for them to be having to deal with at this age.
I mean, we work hard every single day. And all that's leading up to one test. One test. I think it puts too much pressure on us.
It's hard as a teacher to decide when to apply pressure and when to hide them from it. And you try not to pressure them too much, but when the retention part of the RSA law kicked in, there was just no choice about it. They had to know that if they didn't do well on that test, they would have to stay in third grade, and there were very few ways around it. So as testing season approached, you could just feel the tension rise in the building, not just the room. And when they weren't successful at things, you could feel their devastation because they knew this is a sign I'm not going to do well on that test. They're terrified. They don't see retention as a roadblock to graduation. They see it as, I'm going to be embarrassed. My friends are going to go on and everybody's going to know that I can't do it. And all the trust we've built in the classroom to let them know that it's okay to take risks and it's okay to, make mistakes and have failures, that all goes out the window when they have to stay and everybody else goes on.
I'm not saying that retention is out of the question and that retention doesn't benefit some children, but to put all of that on an exam where you just never know what the circumstances are. Some children just don't test well. Some children have a bad night. Some children are so anxious they don't sleep. I mean, there's just several different factors. And unfortunately, I just don't think it shows a very well-rounded picture of what these children are and what they have to offer, and I think it boxes them in and really kind of squashes their potential. And I just think that that's so sad because I think it really takes the joy out of learning. And not to mention the emphasis that's being taken away from things like art and music and, classes that aren't covered under standardized testing. They just get squeezed out. There's not time for that. And that's so sad to me because you never know what interest that child may have. And if they don't have that exposure from an early age, they may never cultivate that love of music or dancing or art. I mean, it's very important. We need artists in the world.
sometimes it seems as a student that if you are from another country and you are coming to look at, the educational system, what is the end result? I think the end result, if you were looking from an outsider, would be to make uniform people. It's like having an assembly line. Each grade you put something on, then you have a product test and see how it is and kind of ship it through to where by the end you're all uniform. It takes the individuality out of being a student.
They are having to learn it almost like robots, sitting in a classroom and just getting prepared for this test no matter what. And it's a mass production type educational system that we are forcing them into. I just think we're losing the individuality.
The students that I really try and advocate for are those students that have special needs or are English language learners. They're expected to take the tests on grade level in those subjects and pass. And that's just fundamentally unfair. It doesn't make any sense. And when we have a student who is on an IEP, an individualized education plan, and has a modified curriculum and is receiving instruction in a specialized way with lots of supports in a regular classroom, but then when it comes to testing time, we put them in front of a computer and give them the exact same test that every other student is taking. That's just not fair, because that student has those special needs and is not going to be able to necessarily learn. And I am not saying that we don't hold every student to high expectations, but those high expectations should be individualized and personalized as much as we can possibly make it. So if we have a student who is reading at the 4th grade level and is taking special ed classes, then we need to be measuring their growth from where they are to where they end, and not expecting them to take an 8th grade test where they're not able to do successfully and the vocabulary is more than they can handle. It's not giving us an accurate measure of that student's progress.
Even though I know some English, but it's not enough for me and some of my friends to take the test. I guess most of the answer. It's way over my skill and knowledge, so it's hard. It makes me feel scared and uncomfortable.
What can we do about high-stakes testing? What we do with any other classroom bully. Stand up to them. If you are concerned about high-stakes testing in Oklahoma, take action. Together we can stand up against high-stakes testing and get this ineffective, archaic system out of our state's public schools. Get involved and spread the word. Tell your neighbors, friends, and family about the issue of high-stakes testing. Join your local parent-teacher association and present the issue to the group. If you are a public school employee, join the Oklahoma Education Association. We also urge you to contact your legislators. At notohighstakes.com, you'll find options to call, email, and tweet your legislators about the issue. Stand up against high-stakes testing.